this cavity is again subdivided by the pelvic inlet into abdomen proper and pelvic cavity. Now this abdominal cavity is covered anteriorly, laterally and posteriorly by the abdominal wall. Now like the thoracic cavity, there is no any bony coverings or protection like that of thorax, but it is the abdominal wall which protects and covers the abdominal viscera. Now this abdominal cavity, the wall is anterior wall, lateral wall and posterior wall. Now the term anterior abdominal wall, to be more specific, it consists anterior as well as lateral walls. That means it is in fact anterolateral abdominal wall. Now this abdominal cavity, it has a roof, it has a floor, and anterior wall, lateral wall and posterior wall. Now the roof of abdominal cavity is formed by the undersurface of the diaphragm. Now the floor of this abdominal cavity is formed by the pelvic diaphragm behind and urogenital diaphragm in front. So it has a roof which is formed by undersurface of diaphragm. Now the floor is formed by pelvic diaphragm and urogenital diaphragm. Urogenital diaphragm, it forms or is present in front, and this pelvic diaphragm is present behind. And this abdominal cavity along with this roof floor, it has anterior wall, posterior wall and lateral walls. We are considering now this anterolateral abdominal wall. This anterolateral abdominal wall, it extends above from, or it is limited above by the xiphisternum and costal margin. Below it is limited by the anterior part of iliac crest, fold of groin, then pubic tubercle, pubic crest and pubic symphysis. So below it is limited by the anterior part of iliac crest, then fold of groin, then pubic tubercle, pubic crest and pubic symphysis. Now laterally it is limited by the extension of mid-axillary line. So above this abdominal wall, it is limited by xiphisternum and costal margin. Below, it is limited by anterior part of iliac crest, then fold of groin, pubic tubercle, pubic crest, pubic symphysis, and laterally it is limited by the prolongation of or extension of this mid-axillary line. Now this anterior abdominal wall is firm and elastic. to the abdominal viscera, and elasticity, it allows the distension of the abdomen. Now this anterior abdominal wall, if we go from superficial to deep, it consists 8 layers. So from superficial to deep, first is skin, then superficial fascia, then external oblique muscle with its aponeurosis, fourth is internal oblique muscle with its aponeurosis. Into this internal oblique, there is Transversus Abdominus with its aponeurosis. This Transversus Abdominus is lined by the fascia transversalis, now deep to this fascia transversalis, there is a layer of extraperitoneal tissue and the innermost layer is the parietal peritoneum. So this anterior abdominal wall is composed of these 8 layers. If we go from superficial to deep, these layers are, most superficial is the skin, then superficial fascia, then external oblique muscle, internal oblique muscle, transversus abdominis muscle, then fascia transversalis, then extraperitoneal tissue, and the innermost layer is the parietal peritoneum. Now, deep to this parietal peritoneum, there is the abdominal viscera. Now, we will discuss these layers one by one. First, we see the skin. Now, the skin of anterior abdominal wall is more thin and sensitive as compared to the posterior abdominal wall. Now, this anterior abdominal wall, as I told you, it is firm and elastic, and it is also, this is the musculo-aponeurotic. Now, the skin, this is the xiphoid process. Now, this line, it should represent the linea alba. This is the umbilicus. Here is the pubic symphysis. This is the fold of groin. This is the costal margin. Now, this is the civisternum. This is the costal margin. This is the linea alba, which extends from the civisternum above to the pubic symphysis below. This is the umbilicus. alba, fold of growing. Now, which we see the skin of anterior abdominal wall. Externally, there is a median furrow. We will see. Now, this median furrow is produced due to the presence of this linea alba. Now, linea alba it extends from the xiphoid process above to the pubic symphysis below, and it is a tendinous raphe. This linea alba is nothing but it is a tendinous raphe which is produced by the aponeurosis of these slack muscles. Okay. Now, there is one median groove which is located, and due to the presence of this linea alba, in this anterior midline there is umbilicus. Then what is the definition of umbilicus? Umbilicus is nothing but it is a normal scar which is a remnant of root of umbilical cord. It is a normal scar produced or is due to the or is a remnant of root of umbilical cord. It lies at the level of intervertebral disc between L3 and L4. Now, umbilicus, it has embryological, anatomical and clinical importance because it is called as a watershed line. Because above this level, venous drainage and umbilical drainage it takes place above this level and below this level. So that is why it is called as watershed line. Now, skin around the umbilicus is or this nerve supply, the skin around this is by the segment T10. Or skin is supplied by the nerve T10. Again, umbilicus is one of the important site of portocaval anastomosis. So, it is an important site of portocaval anastomosis. Again, a few centimeters away from the median line, there are two curved lines are present. These curved lines are called as linea cellularis, which extends from the tip of ninth costal cartilage up to the pubic tubercle. Now, these linea cellularis they represent the lateral margin of the muscle rectus abdominis. So, these curved lines they are present or are at the lateral margin of rectus abdominis. Now, in some people, there may be presence of transverse lines. 2 or 3 transverse lines are present. They are called as linea transversalis. Now, these transverse lines are produced due to the tendinous intersection of this rectus abdominis muscle. Now, these tendinous intersections are present. One is present at this level of xiphoid process. Other is present at the level of umbilicus, and the third one is present midway between these two. Now this tendinous intersection is present in zigzag manner, which provides strength to this rectus abdominis muscle. So the skin, again the lower part of this anterior abdominal wall, there is a presence of irregularly branched white lines which are present in the multiparous lumen, and these white lines, they are called as stria gravidarum. So the skin of this abdominal wall, it presents a midline furrow, then linea semilunaris, linea transversalis, and in the lower part of the abdominal wall, in the parus lumen, there is a presence of white lines which are called as stria gravidarum. Now, deep to the skin, there is a superficial fascia. Now, the superficial fascia, the line joining both this anterior superior iliac spine, above this line, this superficial fascia is in a single layer. But below that, this superficial fascia, it has two layers, superficial fatty layer, which is called as Camper's fascia, deep membranous layer, which is called as Scarpa's fascia. So, below the line joining two anterior superior iliac spines, the superficial fascia is present in two layers, superficial fatty layer and deep membranous layer. Now, this superficial fatty layer in morbid obesity, it is many inches thick, and this superficial fatty layer is continuous with the superficial fascia of the adjoining areas. Now, this deep membranous layer, in between these two layers, there is a presence of superficial epigastric, superficial circumflex iliac, and superficial external pudendal vessels. That means these are the branches of femoral artery and the tributaries of femoral vein. And along with this, there is presence of superficial group of inguinal lymph nodes are present in between these two layers. Now this deep membranous layer, it fuses anteriorly with this linea alba. Then below this inguinal ligament, it becomes continuous with the fascia lata of the thigh. Then here it covers the penis up to the glans penis, and here it is called as Buck's fascia. Then it covers the scrotum. The superficial fascia over penis and scrotum is devoid of fat, and over the scrotum, the superficial fascia is replaced by the involuntary dartos muscle, and this is continuous. This Scarpa's fascia is continuous with this dartos muscle, and in the perineum, this Scarpa's fascia is continuous with the Colles fascia. Now, deep to this membranous layer, there is this external oblique muscle of abdomen. Now, this external oblique, internal oblique, and transversus abdominis, these are the three flat muscles. And this abdominal wall, along with these three flat muscles, it also consists two vertical muscles, that is rectus pairs of muscle, 3 flat muscles and 2 vertical muscles on each side of this midline. So the vertical muscles are rectus abdominis and pyramidalis, and these 2 muscles, they are enclosed in a tendinous sheath which is called as a rectus sheath. So there are 5 muscles on either side of this abdominal wall. Now this anterior midline or this linea alba, it divides the abdominal cavity into right and left halves. So first we'll see this external oblique muscle of abdomen. So this is first flat muscle. As this is a muscle, so it has to be studied in the like that of the sequence: origin, insertion, action, nerve supply, etc. So the origin of external oblique muscle, so it arises in the form of 8 fleshy slits. And this origin, it takes place from outer surfaces and lower borders of the lower 8 ribs. Upper 4 slips, they interdigitate with the serratus anterior, and lower 4 slips, they interdigitate with the latissimus dorsi. So the origin is from outer surfaces and lower borders of the lower 8 ribs. Now the insertion, this fibers of this muscle, the direction of fibers is like that, downward, forward and medially. The same as that of when you insert your hand in your side pockets, the fingers, they will show the direction of this muscle fibers, that is downward, forward and medially. Now the insertion, that is posterior most fibers, they are inserted into the outer lip of the iliac crest, ventral segment, outer lip of this iliac crest. Then remaining fibers, they end in a broad aponeurosis, and this aponeurosis, these fibers, they run downward, forward, medially, and they cover this rectus abdominis muscle, and also they interdigitate with the aponeurosis of the opposite side in the linea alba, which extends from the xiphoid process above to the pubic symphysis below. Now this aponeurosis, so this muscle, it becomes aponeurotic approximately at the level of mid-clavicular line. Now here above the pubic crest, there is one triangular opening in this inguinal ligament. So this inguinal ligament is nothing but this aponeurosis of the external oblique muscle, lower fiber or lower part of it, it folded back on itself, and thus this inguinal ligament is formed, which extends from the pubic tubercle up to the anterior superior iliac spine. Now this aponeurosis of external oblique muscle, it has upper border, lower border. Upper border is free and is overlapped by this pectoralis major muscle, and the lower border, which is free, it becomes thickened and it rolls back on itself to form the inguinal ligament. Now in this inguinal ligament over the pubic crest, there is one triangular opening which is called as superficial inguinal ring. Superficial inguinal ring, which is present over the pubic crest. Now the nerve supply of this external oblique muscle, is supplied by the lower 6 thoracic nerves. So, this external oblique muscle is supplied by the ventral rami of lower 6 thoracic nerves. Now, next to this external oblique, there is internal oblique muscle. As compared to this external oblique, this internal oblique is a thin muscle and it takes origin from lateral 2/3 of this inguinal ligament. Again, the thoracolumbar fascia and intermediate area ventral segment of iliac crest. So this internal oblique muscle, it takes origin from the lateral 2/3 of the inguinal ligament, the intermediate area, that is ventral segment, intermediate area of the iliac crest, and also the thoracolumbar fascia. Now these fibers, muscle fibers, they are present at right angles to the external oblique muscle. That means these fibers, they run upward, forward and medially at right angles to the fibers of external oblique muscle. And most of the fibers, they are inserted on this costal margin, that is 7th, 8th, 9th costal cartilages, also to the linea alba from sigmoid process to this pubic symphysis. Now this inguinal fibers, so the origin is again from this lateral 2/3 of this inguinal ligament. So these inguinal fibers, they first run upwards medially, they arch on the inguinal canal and they descend downwards. And they form or they fuse with the similar fibers of this transversus abdominis to form the conjoint tendon. Now this conjoint tendon is inserted on the pubic crest and pecten pubis. Here. So the conjoint tendon is formed by the fusion of aponeurosis of internal oblique and the aponeurosis of transversus abdominis muscle. And this conjoint tendon is inserted on the pecten pubis and pubic crest. This conjoint tendon is also called as falx inguinalis. Again, this internal oblique muscle is supplied by lower 6 thoracic nerves. Now the third flat muscle, that is the transversus abdominis. As the name suggests, the fibers of this muscle, they run transversely or horizontally. Now the origin of this transversus abdominis is lateral 1/3 of this inguinal ligament, then anterior 2/3 of inner lip of the iliac crest, then thoracolumbar fascia and lower 6 ribs with costal cartilages. So this transversus abdominis, it takes origin from lateral 1/3 of this inguinal ligament. Again, the inner lip of the iliac crest thoracolumbar fascia, and lower 6 ribs. Now these fibers, they run transversely or horizontally, and they are inserted, as you know that this inguinal fibers, first they run upwards, they arch over the inguinal canal, thus forming the roof of inguinal canal, and then they descend and are inserted on the pubic crest and pectoral pubis, and the similar fibers, they fuse with the aponeurosis of this internal oblique to form the conjoint tendon, and this conjoint tendon is inserted on the pectoral pubis and pubic crest. This conjoint tendon is also called as vas inguinalis. Again, this Transversus Abdominis is supplied by the ventral rami of lower 6 thoracic nerves and first lumbar nerve via iliohypogastric and ilioinguinal nerves. So lower 6 plus first abdominal nerve is run through or via iliohypogastric and ilioinguinal nerves. So these are the 3 flat muscles: external oblique, internal oblique, and transversus abdominis. All these 3 flat muscles, they become aponeurotic at the level of mid-clavicular line. That means up to this mid-clavicular line, the fibers are fleshy and then they become aponeurotic. This aponeurosis, they run forward and medially. They fuse with each other and also they fuse with the aponeurosis of opposite side, and thus they form one tendinous sheath which covers 2 vertical muscles, that is rectus abdominis and pyramidalis. Now all these 5, amongst these 5 muscles, 4 muscles are large except one, that is the pyramidalis, which is a very short muscle. Now we see the 2 vertical muscles. First is the rectus abdominis. Now, as the name suggests, rectus is straight and abdominis, that is present in the abdomen. Now this is a flat strap muscle which extends from this pubic symphysis up to the zipisternum. Is present on either side of anterior midline, that is this linea alba. On either side of the linea alba, both these rectus abdominis are present. Now it takes origin by 2 heads, medial head and lateral head. Now this medial head, it takes origin from the anterior surface of this pubic symphysis, and the lateral head, it arises from this pubic tubercle and pubic crest. So rectus abdominis takes origin in the form of 2 heads, medial head and lateral head. Medial head arises from the anterior surface of the pubic symphysis, and the lateral head arises from this pubic tubercle and pubic crest. Then this muscle ascends upwards and it is inserted on this costal margin. This cutting in that way, that is 8, 7 and 6 costal cartilages, and on the xiphoid process in the linea alba. Now, in this muscle, there are 3 tendinous intersections are present, which will produce the linea transversalis or transverse grooves. Now these tendinous intersections are present first at the level of sequotrosus, other at the level of umbilicus, and the third one is present midway between these two. They are present in the zigzag manner. So, in this way, they will provide more strength to this long muscle. More strength provide करता है. Now this rectus abdominis, the lateral margin of it is called as linea semilunaris, which extends from the tip of ninth costal cartilage above the pubic tubercle below. Now this rectus abdominis, it is narrow below, and as it ascends upwards, it becomes or it widens. Now this fifth muscle, that is the pyloromedialis. Now this is a very short triangular muscle which is present in front of this rectus abdominis in the lower part of it. As it is triangular, base is directed downwards and apex is directed upwards. Now is present in 80% of subjects, that is in 20% of subjects this pyloromedialis is absent. Now it arises from the body of the pubis and anterior pubic ligament. So the origin of pyloromedialis is from body of pubis and anterior pubic ligament and is inserted on the linea alba. Now this pyloromedialis is supplied by the subcostal nerve. Now what is the action or functions of these muscles of anterolateral abdominal wall? These muscles, they will protect the abdominal viscera from external injury. Also, these will, when they compress the viscera to increase the intra-abdominal pressure as in the expulsive acts like that of vomiting, coughing, vomiting, defecation, micturition, etc. Also in the expiration. So, they compress the abdominal viscera by increasing the intra-abdominal pressure. Also, this wall or these muscles, they will provide protection from the external injuries, the viscera. Now we see again this inguinal ligament in detail. Then we go forwards. This inguinal ligament is also called as Cowper's ligament. You know the formation of it, that is the aponeurosis of the external oblique muscle, lower border of it becomes thickened and it folds back on itself, and thus this inguinal ligament is formed. Now extension, it extends from this anterior superior iliac spine up to the pubic tubercle. Now over the pubic crest, this inguinal ligament, there is one triangular opening which is called as superficial inguinal ring. Now what are the expansions of this inguinal ligament? First is this medial part of this inguinal ligament. It presents three expansions. First is the lacunar ligament. second is reflected part of inguinal ligament. Third is ligament of Uterus. So, the medial part of the inguinal ligament represents three expansions. First is the lateral ligament, second is the reflected part of inguinal ligament, and third is the ligament of Cooper. Now, the neurovascular bundle of anterior abdominal wall is present in between this internal oblique and transversus abdominis muscle. Now, we see the fascia transversalis. Now, this fascia transversalis is areolar membrane which covers the muscle, that is transversus abdominis. So what is fascia transversalis? It is an areolar membrane which covers or lines the inner surface of transversus abdominis. Now this fascia transversalis, above it becomes continuous with the subdiaphragmatic fascia. That fascia which is present below the diaphragm is called as subdiaphragmatic fascia. So above it is continuous with this subdiaphragmatic fascia. Now below the inguinal ligament, it becomes continuous with the fascia lata of thigh. Anteriorly, it becomes adherent with the posterior surface of the linea alba, and posteriorly, it becomes continuous with the anterior layer of thoracolumbar fascia. So, this fascia transversalis, above it becomes continuous with the subdiaphragmatic fascia. Below the inguinal ligament, it becomes continuous with the deep fascia of thigh, that is the fascia lata. Anteriorly, it becomes adherent to the posterior surface of the linea alba, or in short, it becomes adherent to this linea alba, and posteriorly, it fuses with the anterior layer of thoracolumbar fascia. Now this fascia transversalis, there is a point 1.25 centimeters above the mid-inguinal point. So 1.25 centimeters above the mid-inguinal point, there is an oval opening in this fascia transversalis, which is called as deep inguinal vein, through which the spermatic cord in male, it passes through this, and round ligament of uterus in case of females. So there is an oval opening which is present 1.25 centimeters above the mid-inguinal point, and through this deep inguinal ring, spermatic cord in males and round ligament in case of females, it passes through this deep inguinal ring. So this is about this fascia transversalis. Again, as you know that in the thigh, it extends 3 to 4 centimeters in the femoral vessels, and it forms the anterior wall of the femoral sheath, isn't it? In the thigh, it extends 3 to 4 centimeters of the femoral vessels. It covers and forms the anterior wall of the femoral sheath. So this is the fascia transversalis. Due to this fascia transversalis, there is a layer of extraperitoneal tissue. Now this extraperitoneal tissue is composed of fibroareolar and fatty tissue. So this extraperitoneal tissue, it is composed of fibroareolar and fat. And due to this, there is eighth layer or innermost layer is the parietal peritoneum. Now, this abdominal viscera is enclosed in a serous membrane, that is the peritoneum, again having two layers, parietal layer and visceral layer. Inside the parietal peritoneum, there is the abdominal viscera proper. Now this parietal peritoneum below the umbilicus, it presents 5 folds. Median umbilical folds. Then a pair of medial umbilical folds and a pair of lateral umbilical folds. So this parietal peritoneum below the umbilicus there is, so imagine posteriorly, that is the deepest layer. So below the umbilicus there is one median umbilical fold which consists median umbilical ligament, which is a remnant of uterus.